Newark, New Jersey, in the 1980s, offered little forgiveness to a lonely Portuguese immigrant's son.
Well, I was born in Newark, New Jersey, and I grew in the town next door, which is Harrison, but pretty much ran around in that area over there.
Felipe Santos wandered those unforgiving streets, a child seeking connection in a world where his parents worked endless shifts to keep their small apartment in a 10-unit building his father eventually purchased with his uncle.
Yeah, so my parents are Portuguese immigrants. It's a big Portuguese community in Newark in that section. So they came here, I believe, like in the early 70s. And then, my mom worked and my dad worked all the time. I have no brothers and sisters. It was just me.
While other children had siblings to buffer against life's harsher realities, Felipe faced the world alone. The absence of brothers and sisters left a void that the neighborhood's concrete playgrounds couldn't fill.
Well, it's interesting because, people who have brothers are like, that must have been nice, but it was really lonely, right? And the thing is, my mom worked all day and my dad worked all day.
The basketball courts became his sanctuary, a place where older boys gathered, boys who would become his impromptu role models in the absence of more traditional guidance.
And so I ran the streets. That's where I started getting into that. I started looking for older role models, and it was in front of we had a basketball courts in front, and that's who I tended to gravitate towards. There wasn't any other options, obviously, but it led me into that.
Felipe didn't recognize the poverty surrounding him until years later, when distance provided perspective. The working-class neighborhood functioned on a simple economy of survival. If you needed sneakers, you got sneakers. If you needed food, you ate. But luxuries remained elusive and opportunities even more so.
It was like, you want to hear something funny, right? So I didn't know how poor it was till I moved out. Mm-hmm. And it was like working class poor. Like everybody had jobs. Everybody, if you needed a car, if you needed sneakers. So we were fed. It wasn't nothing like that, but it was very urban. And there wasn't too many gangs involved or nothing like that, but it was definitely like a lot of my friends were in and out of jail all the time. So I knew that already. And so growing up, it was like, I can't wait to go to jail. Not that I want to, but just to say that I was in jail, which is crazy.
His parents, hoping to shield their son from negative influences, enrolled him in Catholic school. The irony wasn't lost on Felipe. The concentration of troubled youth merely intensified his exposure to delinquent behavior.
My parents put me in private school. I started getting in trouble a lot, so they were like, let me put you in private school. And I think I actually got in more, it was Catholic school. I got in even more trouble because all the other bad kids were there.
Among the uniformed students, he stood out not for academic achievement, but for his inability to sit still, his quick mouth, and his growing reputation as a troublemaker. Teachers would prophesy his downfall, words that seemed to carry the weight of destiny rather than warning.
Teachers, everybody was just like, you're going to be no good, and they were right. I was setting it up so that I didn't know that. Look, I couldn't stay still when I was, even now I can't stay still, right? Whether it's ADHD or whatever it is, I didn't get diagnosed when I was supposed to. And thank God I didn't, so I don't use that as a crutch.
And Felipe, young and impressionable, began fulfilling these expectations with remarkable dedication. His first transgression came early. A stolen Hot Wheels car in kindergarten that earned his father's frustrated presence at school. It was a small beginning to what would become a pattern. The rush of adrenaline, the momentary high of possession, followed by consequences that never quite served as deterrents.
I started getting in trouble in school. I started stealing. Stealing was my first, get high, right? I remember I moved from Newark to Harrison. I still remember. And it was kindergarten. And I remember my dad got called into school from work, so he was pissed that he had to leave because I stole a Hot Wheels car.
One Hot Wheels car?
One Hot Wheels car. But that was the beginning of it. And then I just remember being a little klepto the whole time, I got off on getting off.
As Felipe grew older, his petty thefts evolved. School fundraising donations disappeared into his pockets. His nimble fingers developed a skill of manipulation, while his conscience remained undeveloped, untroubled by these small betrayals of trust.
Then I remember in school, like, it was Catholic school, so there was like fundraising and shit, and I would steal the donations. I knew where there was in the desk. I started doing that stuff. So stealing was definitely like the first time I was getting in trouble with a lot of that stuff.
The skateboards that carried him through neighborhood streets became symbols of rebellion in a town where such activities weren't merely discouraged, but actively prohibited. Fighting became a survival skill, not a choice. Though Felipe wasn't naturally aggressive, preferring flight to confrontation unless absolutely necessary. In this environment, Felipe learned early that respect often came through intimidation, and belonging sometimes required breaking rules. The desire to fit in, to be acknowledged, drove him further from the path his hard-working immigrant parents had envisioned when they crossed an ocean for a better life. Hey brothers, tired of YouTube's BS and censorship? It's time to break free. That's why I've shifted gears to Patreon, where I can bring you the raw, uncensored content you crave. Join my Patreon crew and get an insane package deal. Exclusive early access to all videos, days before YouTube, 100% ad-free viewing experience, uncensored, no-holds-barred community discussions, double the content, 2 killer videos every single week, VIP access, direct interaction with yours truly, inside scoop, exclusive biker world updates you won't find anywhere else. Ready to join the elite? Hit that Patreon link now. Your support doesn't just keep us rolling, it fuels a revolution of uncensored, unrestricted content. Join now and unlock a world of exclusive benefits. High school brought new freedoms and darker temptations. By the mid-1990s, Felipe had developed a distinctive persona, long hair cascading down his back, a skateboard perpetually underfoot, and a growing appetite for experiences that pushed boundaries. The structured environment of Catholic high school gave way to public education after his expulsion, thrusting him into a social ecosystem where adaptation meant survival.
I did end the finish. I got kicked out in the beginning of junior year. I was going to Catholic high school, and then I went to public high school. And at that time, I was like smoking weed. I had long hair all the way. I know it's crazy, but I had long hair all the way down to here.
In the bustling streets of New York City, just a short journey from his home, Felipe found kindred spirits among the skaters at Brooklyn Banks. Occasionally brushing shoulders with figures from the legendary film Kids, including Harold Hunter, he absorbed the raw energy of urban counterculture.
I graduated in '96, so I was skating. I was hanging out with some of the people from the movie Kids, Harold Hunter and them. I was always in the city. That's why we were talking before about a previous guest that
Brandon Novak.
I know who he is, and Bam and all them. They're about the same age, or Brandon is. We would skate the Brooklyn Banks. That's kind of where I was, just smoking weed and drinking, just really chilling.
These weren't merely recreational outings. They were master classes in rebellion, each trip nurturing his growing disregard for convention. Despite his troubled trajectory, Felipe maintained an unexpected intellectual dexterity. When transferred to public school, educators recognized his aptitude, placing him in advanced placement courses. Physics particularly captivated him. The tangible experiments and real-world applications resonated with his hands-on learning style in ways that theoretical subjects never could.
I remember when I got kicked out, they put me in like all AP classes, right? And I never did homework or nothing like that. That's where, but they were like, it's a lot more hands-on. So I had like, was it honors or AP physics? And it was cool because like they would see a ball dropping off the table and I could measure it. It wasn't just like reading from a book and memorizing stuff, right? And testing like that.
His academic potential, however, increasingly collided with chemical curiosity. Weekends at Strawberry Fields and Central Park introduced him to acid, opening doors of perception that would eventually lead to harder substances.
When I was like 18, it was like, you know, I did a lot of acid too. That was a big thing for me. Acid was in the 90s. I would go to Central Park. It was Strawberry Fields, they call it. And you'd buy like a sheet.
Each new drug offered something the last couldn't provide: confidence, articulation, freedom from social anxiety. The shy boy, who once struggled to approach girls, discovered a chemical courage that seemed, momentarily, like a solution rather than the beginning of a devastating problem. The progression followed a familiar pattern. Marijuana led to acid, acid to cocaine, and eventually to heroin.
Anyway, I did a lot of acid, right? And then it went into heavier drugs, right? Because just people I was around, so I started getting into coke a lot. And then around that time with college, I started getting into heroin.
While his parents remained largely unaware, focused on providing through their exhausting work schedules, Felipe navigated this dangerous terrain alone, making choices that would echo through decades of his life. County colleges became revolving doors, places to briefly attempt normalcy before the gravitational pull of addiction drew him back to familiar corners and companionships. Architecture, once a genuine passion, faded into the background as classroom attendance became secondary to scoring the next high. The wake-up call came during an architecture class. After getting beaten while attempting to purchase heroin, Felipe returned to school, suddenly overcome by mysterious, excruciating pain.
It was funny because I was like in an architecture class, and I was already doing heroin, and I went to go get heroin and I got beat. I went to Newark and I got beat, right?
Lying on the bathroom floor, contorting in agony, he experienced his first withdrawal symptoms, a physiological betrayal that revealed the true nature of his relationship with opiates.
So I went to school, and then I'm like, fuck, my back's starting to hurt, starting to get pains. I'm like, what the fuck is it? I had no idea. And I'm like, I went to the bathroom, and I'm like laying on the floor like spasming. I'm like, what the fuck? I went to the professor. I'm like, yo, I gotta get the fuck out of here.
This moment of clarity brought a devastating realization. What had begun as recreation had transformed into dependence. The substances that once seemed to enhance his world had become its painful center. Felipe wasn't just using drugs. They were using him, reshaping his priorities, relationships, and future with ruthless efficiency. The criminal justice system became a revolving door in Felipe's 20s. His record accumulated felonies, 18 in total, each one representing not just a crime, but a desperate attempt to sustain his growing heroin habit. The pattern became predictable: arrest, brief incarceration, release, and immediate return to the familiar streets and habits that guaranteed his next booking. His first significant arrest came after returning from the Bronx, where he and friends had purchased cocaine. Caught at a checkpoint in Newark, Felipe experienced his first stint in county jail, requiring bail money. This arrest marked the moment his parents fully realized the severity of his problem.
The first time I got locked up, it was funny. I got locked up for, like, I lost my license, so that was a bad sign already, and I'm just 18, right? I lost my license, so that, but like the first time I really got locked up and I went to county, I was coming back from the Bronx, and we would buy our Coke there, right? We'd go to this apartment building up there, whatever. We bought Coke, and we were driving back into Newark, and there was a checkpoint, and it was me, my buddy, and another buddy, and they found it. So next thing you know, I end up in county jail, right? And it's the first time I need bail, right? All the other ones were just like ROR or something like that. So that's when they're really like, shit hit the fan, that they knew I had a problem.
County jail, once a terrifying prospect, transformed into a grimly familiar environment. The orange jumpsuit that had once marked him as an outsider eventually felt like a uniform for an occupation he had inadvertently chosen. Felipe recognized the guards, knew the routines, understood the unwritten social codes that governed life inside.
So I'm getting locked up a lot, right? So I'm getting all these little felonies, a lot of county stuff, in and out of jail. I'm getting used to it, which is not fucking good. Then I start shooting it, and then it's just like, it's all fucking over. I'm like hanging out in the projects. You know, just I got no car. I'm not homeless because my parents always let me stay there, but I would stay more in the projects just because that's where all the drugs were than anything else.
Most disturbing of all, he began encountering childhood friends behind the same walls. Their parallel journeys, a stark reminder of environmental influences. His parents' financial and emotional resources depleted with each arrest. The early interventions, expensive lawyers, bail payments, second chances, gradually gave way to tough love. Eventually, they refused to post bail, their heartbreaking decision coming from the realization that jail might be the only environment where their son couldn't kill himself through drugs. Between incarcerations, Felipe haunted Newark's projects, no longer even pretending to maintain a normal life. Though technically not homeless thanks to his parents' reluctant refuge, he rarely went home, preferring to stay where drugs were readily available. His existence narrowed to a singular focus, obtaining enough heroin to prevent the sickness of withdrawal. Everything else, dignity, relationships, future, became negotiable. The manipulation that began with stealing school donations evolved into sophisticated cons. The self-awareness that occasionally broke through this fog of addiction brought only momentary shame, quickly suppressed by chemical comfort. Attempts to break free led to new dependencies. Xanax, promised as a pathway to heroin withdrawal, merely added another addiction. Methadone treatment, intended as replacement therapy, became yet another substance to abuse. Each supposed solution multiplied the problem, creating a pharmacological prison with ever-thickening walls.
When you're a drug addict, like full-blown, like it doesn't matter. You're just like, not even one day, it's just one fix to the next. Then what happened was like, I was like, cool, how do I get the fuck off this shit? Because I didn't want to be a drug addict forever, right? I wasn't like glorifying it. So that's when it started getting more into like, you start hearing about how to get off. So first my buddy's like, yeah, if you take Xanax, you could kick fucking heroin in 4 days. So I did it, but now I got a Xanax and a heroin fucking addiction. Then he's like, hey, you could do methadone, right? So now I got a methadone and a fucking heroin addiction. So like, I'm just like culminating all this shit because I'm not looking to deal with the root of the issue. I'm looking just like the symptoms.
The physical deterioration mirrored his spiritual and moral decline. The healthy, young skateboarder disappeared, replaced by a gaunt figure whose body betrayed the chaos within. In his mid-20s, amidst the chaos of addiction, Felipe encountered an unexpected path to belonging: the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs. His lifelong fascination with motorcycles, combined with his yearning for acceptance and structure, drew him to a mixed-race motorcycle club that offered something his fractured life lacked: Brotherhood.
Listen, I ran with other junkies. What happened later is like, I started getting into, I was always into motorcycles, and then I started getting into the biker scene.
You got into a biker gang?
Yeah.
Really?
I was in that for like 10 years.
The transition from isolated addict to club member provided Felipe with a substitute family structure. For a young man who grew up without siblings, the camaraderie of fellow riders filled a void that drugs could never satisfy. The club demanded loyalty and offered protection, operating by a strict code that, despite existing on society's margins, provided more stability than Felipe had known in years.
It was different for me. Like, I knew some people, right? So I knew some people from the projects, right? And it was like a mixed race a biker gang. And look, I was looking for brotherhood. Just like anybody that talks about gangs and stuff like that, usually you look for brotherhood. I look for these people. They not only got respect, they demanded respect, and I was like, cool, this is my in to get in it. And I was still getting fucked up. I managed to get a bike together, And, like anything else, in the beginning, it's really fun.
Initially, the motorcycle club tolerated his drug use, turning a blind eye as long as he didn't embarrass them publicly. Harleys, not heroin, were meant to be the focus of his devotion.
They knew I got high, I just didn't get high in front of them.
Okay.
All right, towards the end, it changed a little bit, I saw that, but, I would get called in once in a while where they were like, hey, you rode your motorcycle with your colors on into the fucking projects. You can't be doing that shit. I'm saying it nicer than they said it to me. So they gave me the warning. Like I said, I knew some people, so they always kind of like guided me a little bit.
The expectation to maintain a motorcycle, American-made, as club rules dictated, gave Felipe responsibility and purpose. Despite his ongoing struggle with addiction, he managed to keep a bike running, a small achievement in a life otherwise defined by failure.
I really just wanted to ride and hang out and party, and I still have some great friendships in that. I didn't really go on the illegal shit just because, look, I had a couple felonies already, so I know like the next time I get locked up, the judge wasn't gonna look me, so I kind of like stayed away from that shit. And I was already doing the drug thing. I was more focused on that.
Club life introduced Felipe to a different kind of danger. Territorial disputes with rival clubs occasionally erupted into violent confrontations. During one particularly harrowing incident with the Hells Angels, gunfire erupted, and Felipe found himself in the middle of a chaotic scene that seemed pulled from a film rather than real life. The adrenaline rush of these encounters rivaled any chemical high, offering a different but equally potent form of escape.
There was situations, there was fights, there was times where it was like shit might pop off and you got to be ready. We had one big fight with Hells Angels, right? And you don't think it's gonna go down like that, and it went down, and there's guns popping off everywhere and everything. And again, it's one of those like, where the fuck am I?
The club became a social anchor, providing opportunities for travel and brotherhood Felipe had never experienced. In 2014, he rode with club members all the way to Miami in March, traveling from snow-covered New Jersey to the warm Florida coast. These road trips to various states, including regular rides to Massachusetts, reinforced his sense of belonging to something larger than himself.
So it's like we rode till Georgia for like a day, somewhere around there. And once it gets dark, you kind of like hit the hotel, so you don't want to ride at night. And then it took us another day to get to Miami.
And you guys just drive all day?
Yeah, it's fun. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. It's a cool experience.
For nearly a decade, Felipe straddled these worlds: the structured hierarchy of the motorcycle club and the chaotic realm of addiction. The colors on his back and the tattoos accumulating on his skin declared affiliations and loyalties, even as his private struggles continued. Fellow club members, many holding steady jobs as ironworkers, carpenters, and mechanics, represented a working-class stability that seemed simultaneously within reach and impossibly distant. The motorcycle club's culture of toughness and self-reliance initially meshed with Felipe's street-hardened persona.
Yeah, like it starts like that, right? Like most people have jobs. Usually it's working class, not too many lawyers and doctors in there, but iron workers, right? Carpenters. I was a carpenter for a while. Utilities, stuff like that, right? Mechanics, working class. And it is a brotherhood.
Yet as time passed, the contradictions between his drug dependency and the club's expectation of strength became increasingly difficult to reconcile. Security work and other duties assigned by the club required clear-headedness he couldn't consistently deliver. Eventually, Felipe's drug use became a liability even within this permissive environment. Showing up high at events, missing meetings, and demonstrating unpredictable behavior strained his standing. The values that had initially attracted him to the club, loyalty, reliability, brotherhood, were precisely those that his addiction made impossible to uphold. The November 4th, 2011, marked a line in the sand. The day Felipe Santos finally embraced sobriety after 2 decades lost to addiction. Unlike previous attempts, this decision emerged not from external pressure, but from bone-deep exhaustion with his own existence. At 33, Felipe confronted a stark reality: continue using and die, or leap into the terrifying unknown of recovery. The catalyst came from an unexpected source: fatherhood. When his son was born, addicted to heroin in June 2011, spending 2 months in the hospital withdrawing from opiates, Felipe confronted the generational damage his choices were creating. Though this realization didn't immediately transform him, the seed was planted. His son's vulnerable existence offered something Felipe's own life hadn't provided in years: a reason to change. Felipe had previously attempted recovery, including a stint in a Florida rehabilitation facility in 2005, and various efforts with methadone and Xanax that only resulted in additional dependencies.
I went to Florida to try to get clean in 2005. I did a rehab here in New Jersey, and then I went to Florida, Delray. It's like the rehab capital of the world. So I went there, and I stayed clean for a little bit. I came back, continued using. I found a girl that was getting high too, and I was like, it's fucking great. This is a jackpot. We both have similar goals. She already had 2 kids, 2 daughters, and she was my running partner for a while. Eventually, she got pregnant with my son now. And I was getting tired of getting high. So I was like coming to like, what happened was like, I was like, I don't want to be an old junkie.
But this time was different. He had reached the point where the pain of continuing his lifestyle outweighed the fear of change. Early recovery demanded total immersion. Felipe attended 3 Narcotics Anonymous meetings daily, not from zealous belief, but from fear of isolation. The emptiness of newly sober evenings threatened to consume him, so he filled them with stories of recovery, surrounding himself with people who understood the language of addiction and the difficult syntax of healing. With his mother providing crucial support caring for his infant son, Felipe created space to focus entirely on his recovery in those initial months. Meanwhile, his child's mother continued using, eventually abandoning rehabilitation attempts and leaving Felipe to assume full custody of their son. Felipe approached recovery with the same intensity he had once devoted to scoring drugs.
So when I got clean, the first thing is like my mom was helping with the baby. I told the baby's mother like she had to go to rehab or she had to get out. We were living at my parents' house. She went to rehab. She never completed. She dipped. And so my son kind of like stayed with my mom. I got clean. I'm going to meetings, and that's where I'm going back into like my perspective started to change on things, right? So I'm in this bike club, I'm hanging out and everything, and I don't find that much of a use for it anymore. You know, I got clean.
He secured employment as a union carpenter, rebuilding his work ethic alongside his personal life. The structure of physical labor provided rhythm to days previously orchestrated around chemical needs. Calluses replaced track marks as his hands relearned honest work. Custody of his son became both motivation and reward. While his child bore no lasting health effects from his difficult entrance into the world, Felipe remained vigilant, recognizing the genetic predisposition to addiction that might someday challenge his son. He approached parenting with open communication about his past, determined to break patterns deeply encoded in their shared DNA. The biker culture that had provided surrogate family gradually receded from prominence in Felipe's life. After 10 years, he negotiated a rare, amicable separation from the club in 2016, maintaining friendships while stepping away from the lifestyle. His evolving values and priorities no longer aligned with the environment that had once seemed his only community.
So like I still have the camaraderie. I have a lot of friends in in that bike club and other bike clubs too that I have, but because it started going a different direction too, first I wasn't okay with anybody telling me what to do, really. Like I wanted to belong, but I didn't want to, like, you know, become the bitch. And so, like, my new ideals or morals were conflicting with the old ones.
Personal development replaced chemical exploration. Felipe devoured self-improvement literature, attended Tony Robbins seminars, and built businesses with the same resourcefulness once devoted to maintaining his habit. The manipulative intelligence that had served his addiction found constructive outlets in entrepreneurship and relationship building. Marriage to a woman he met in recovery solidified his transformation. Together they created the family stability neither had experienced in active addiction. Their daughter, now 3 years old, added another dimension to his commitment. Not just staying clean for survival, but living fully for connection and joy. Today, with 12 years of sobriety, Felipe navigates life with clarity that seemed impossible during his decades of addiction. His story of transformation serves as testament that change is possible at any stage, from any depth, offering hope to those still struggling in the shadows he once called home.